Welcome back to the Alternate History Guild. This video is a bit special, more about it at the end. As we all know, Germany under Hitler was very aggressive. They invaded Czechoslovakia, annexed Austria, invaded Poland, Benelux, France, Denmark, Norway. And in the 23rd of October of 1940, at the border town of Endaja, Franco and Hitler met for an interview. Now, this interview in real life didn't really lead to anything, but what if it did? What Franco asked for was French Morocco, parts of Algeria, Gibraltar, and some supplies to help his population, since they had just come out of the Spanish Civil War. Hitler, wanting to have an ally in Western Europe that could easily get Gibraltar, would accept this time and allow Spain to take those territories, forcing Vichy France to give them. With their empire expanded, Spain would take over Gibraltar, and Franco would soon talk to Salazar about Portugal joining the Axis. Franco tried to convince Portugal that it would be a great idea for the Portuguese Empire in Africa. However, Salazar was still not entirely convinced about Hitler's power in Europe, to which Hitler responded by invading and destroying Yugoslavia. With this, Portugal joined the Axis, with hopes of, eventually, uniting their two colonies into just one. And thus, with Gibraltar blocked, there was a new operation between the Spanish, Italian, and Bulgarian governments, which was codenamed Operation Mediterranean. The intention was to take over Greece and, essentially, the British territories in the Mediterranean, including the oil fields at Iraq. Here, unlike in real life, it would be much easier for the combined force of Italians and Spanish to advance in Africa, since now Gibraltar was blocked, and the marine warfare was much easier, helping the soldiers on ground to advance faster. At the same time, the Bulgarians and Italians invaded Greece in a much easier fashion than our timeline, since the more general assault was much more effective. However, even with this additional manpower, Hitler would still be unable to invade Britain. This meant that, just like in our timeline, he would commit the fatal decision of invading Russia. The invasion would go more or less like it went in our timeline. However, there was one key difference. Now the Axis had the Iraq oil fields. But while you would think that this would make a huge difference, I do not believe so. Instead, what would happen is that Hitler would invade the Caucasus with the objective of pressuring Turkey into letting them access their territory, so that all the oil between the Caucasian oil and the Iraqi oil could get to the front lines. The extra oil coming from Iraq, even though not with direct access, would allow Germany to push even further than it did in our timeline. But their objective of capturing the whole Soviet Union would not be realized. Why, you might ask? The short answer is the USA, and the long answer is the United States of America. Since the Axis now had much more territory, they needed to get more manpower to defend it. However, the manpower provided by Spain and Portugal proved to not be enough and made Africa a poorly defended part of the front. Now here is where we'll make our scenario two different scenarios. First of all, the USA victory. Here, the United States manages to very quickly overrun the Spanish and Portuguese territories. This would mean that the United States would get to Berlin much faster than the Soviets could. Thus, in the aftermath, Germany would stay united, but in the United States' sphere of influence. Same with Austria and Yugoslavia, Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania and Bulgaria would stay as neutral states, partially influenced by the United States and partially influenced by the Soviet Union. This would cement the United States as the world leader and first superpower, since the Soviet Union did not have the influence that it did in our timeline to rival the United States. And now, let's change to our other alternate scenario, the one in which the Soviet Union gains victory. Here, instead of the United States quickly overrunning Spain and Portugal, they would face a lot of guerrillas. To just make an example, let's go to the Guadalhorce, a river in Andalusia. This is one of the tactics that the Spanish used in their war against the United States. In the skirmish, a couple of mannequins were hidden in a stone fortification. They were barely visible to the Americans. This made them confident in that they could take them head on. However, the Americans checked the valley, trying to find any other Spanish troops hidden. After that, they started crossing over the bridge. However, while they were at it, suddenly, gunshots from the trees farther away. The Spanish had actually prepared an ambush. Those men in the fort, they were just mannequins, and the Americans tried to run to cover. However, not all of them would make it. With the Spanish seeing the Americans, but the Americans not seeing the Spanish, it would eventually retreat. This small skirmish left 24 dead Americans and 4 dead Spaniards. With this skirmish as an example, and many such more happening during the American campaign in Spain, the Soviets managed to occupy Berlin much faster than the Americans, since the Germans had to divert quite a lot of troops back to the Western Front. The peace treaty will look more similar to the one we got in our timeline, with the exception of Yugoslavia being aligned with the Soviet Union rather than being non-aligned, Albania also being in the Soviet Union's direct influence sphere, and East Germany being much bigger and comparable to West Germany. Now on the western side, France was given Spain's colonies in Africa and border regions with Spain. In this timeline, the Cold War would be very interesting, since the Soviet Union would hold slightly more power than the United States. This video is dedicated to IdealKangaroo. He was one of the people who got the restarted channel going. Without him, we may never have been here, nor with the previous video. There is gonna be a second part of a tribute to him. He's living Discord indefinitely, so we don't know when he'll come back. I hope you'll have enjoyed the video, and I sure hope I'll see you on the next one.